Good evening, everybody. When Dom asked me to speak, he warned me that I've got 10 minutes, and that if I go a second over, he'll grab the mic away from me. Dom, they're not portable. I've tried my best, but if you witness this MND patient running around the room being pursued by his neurologist, I'll do my best to remain composed so that I can finish my speech. My name is Gary. I'm a father of 2 sons, Joshua and Gabriel, and the 41-year partner of their mother and the love of my life, Simone. I'm a clinical psychologist with 30 years of experience. In December 2023, I had a bout of COVID. I recovered from the respiratory symptoms, but wasn't regaining energy. I attribute it to a longer COVID recovery. But then other symptoms emerged, including vesiculations in my upper arm area. I started recognizing a pattern that prompted me to ask my GP for a referral to Dom. You see, Dom treated my father, Sonny, for MND over a decade ago, and he supported him in a way that was so respect-worthy, and I witnessed how my father grew to love Dom. I do too. On that fateful day of the 17th of May, 2024, Dom once more uttered those words, "You have MND," this time not to my father, but to me. Our son Joshua was one of the first people to hear. He has told us that all he heard me saying was, "I've been to see Dom." Having already been with his brother Gabe on that journey with their beloved puppy Sonny, he knew Dom by name, and he knew that name was synonymous with MND. When I told my other son Gabe, he grabbed me and howled for 10 minutes. We howled together. And he then, a few days later, said to me, "Dad, you're going to get really, really bad, and then Dom is going to figure out a cure, and you're going to get better." I bizarrely felt special when, after receiving the results from genetic testing, Dom told me that I was his very first NEC1 patient. This awful specialness has indeed defined my life from its beginning. I was born 2 years after the tragic death of my 4-year-old sister Gail in a car accident. I've always known and felt myself to be tragically, awfully special. This past year since my diagnosis has been one of slow progression, mostly a progressive loss of function in my hands. Not just muscle, but meaningful engagement with everyday life in all the ordinary, intricate, incredible ways the intelligence of hands render us capable. And now their slow silencing. After being given the diagnosis, I recall the feeling as like being cast as a character in a movie, but no one had given me the script. And so began my journey of discovery and learning. My first learning occurred at my son's wedding some 2 months later. I discovered, as I was approached by person after person who knew about my diagnosis but hadn't seen me yet, what I would come to recognize as this universal, I'll go as far as saying that it is universal, an expression that became predictable. It asks, "How is it? How are you? How do I relate to you now?" But I've come to feel that it's not just me they're asking about. That gaze seems to both conceal and reveal something deeper, a hope, maybe unconscious, that I can tell them how it is for them too. How are we to face misfortune, our mortality? How are we to live knowing that we're dying? Questions that are perhaps more urgent than ever in a world addicted to Instagrammed wellness and the tyranny of positivity. My 30 years sitting with human struggle and suffering in the consulting room have gifted me an appreciation and understanding that I'm not alone, and that it is the relationship, the connection formed between me and my patients that constitutes the healing balm of psychological work. Experience has taught me to trust deeply that it is our capacity for genuine empathy, for caring, and for kindness that is healing. I have been offering that to people as a gift that I've been able to give, and now it's time for me to learn how to receive it. We've over-glorified the myth of individualism, of the solitary hero, the self-made man, the isolated will. What MND and my work has taught me, what this mind-body knows, is that we are, at core, relational, not just emotionally or spiritually, but neurologically. Our brains are built out of and for connection. Our nervous systems tuned to co-regulate. We are not just with one another, we are of one another. And it is through these connections, these attuned presences, that we become our fullest selves. My MND body feels like a vehicle constantly running on reserve. There's an ever-present hum, sometimes louder, sometimes softer. The tank always low, energy rationed, movement negotiated. It whispers a quiet instruction: stay still, conserve, submit. And sometimes I do. But then, as the sudden opportunity to catch a fish while kayaking, the joy of preparing a meal for family and friends, and suddenly a surge, a flicker of vitality, not imagined, real. The body gifted a sacred shot of adrenaline, a rush from the dopaminergic depths, a moment of agency and of appetite. And in those moments, I remember not just who I was, but somewhere deep in my marrow, that version still flickers. Living with MND for me is refusing to be defined by a 3-letter acronym. I want to tell people about the awfulness of pity with all its painful projections, and about the profound grounding power of attunement, that kind of being with. Years ago on holiday, I met a friend of a Brazilian man living with a terminal illness who related the story to me. His friend was the fire maker at their regular weekend Brazilian barbecues. It was his pride, his joy, his way of contributing. But as his illness progressed, the fire-making began taking longer and longer, and others began stepping in, thinking they were being helpful. But then they noticed something. Their friend was withdrawing, diminishing. The fire was going out in him. And so they resolved to adjust their presumptions and their expectations, choosing accommodation over efficiency, connection over convenience. What does it matter if we eat later than usual? They asked themselves. What matters is our friend's well-being. And so they started the fire-making earlier. They waited longer. They aligned themselves to his tempo, and in so doing, they returned him to himself. This is a story of attunement. It's about empathy, the opposite of pity. It's about dignity extended not as charity, but as kinship. It is what we need to help us stay in the fire-making. Living with MND means facing the abyss and choosing not to enter. It requires courage and resisting the temptation of self-pity. Adapt, adjust, accept. Carry oneself with the responsibility of taking care of those around who are on the journey with you too. I have to say, Professor Dominic Rowe, you and your team are incredible. I think more than you may realize. The comfortable, friendly space of your neuroclinic softens the hard-edged reality of the serious matter of having to visit the hospital. Knowing I am in the hands of people who care, under the leadership of someone who cares deeply, who is a dedicated warrior to the cause, provides a profound level of comfort and ease. And for that, I thank you. The warrior has an army, and they need to be fed. They need the resources to speed up in the race against time. I ask that tonight you dig deep to help the community realize the goal of progressing effective treatments for MND and ultimately the holy grail of a cure. Yes, this is a disease that strips away so much and also reveals so much about what we often take for granted: the power of relationship, the beauty of kindness, and in simply being met as you are, even as you may struggle to know yourself. Tonight, I don't just feel diminished by MND, I feel more connected, more alive, more held than I ever imagined possible. This is the gift of community. So thank you for your generosity tonight and for being part of what makes this life, even now, one filled with purpose and meaning. Thank you.